This is Thursday's Daf, second day of. We are on Daf Samach Hey Amar Aleph. We are up to the Mishnah. Continuing to learn about Shlich, Leilacha, Shlich, Kabbalah. I didn't mention you last time. There's a big malchekes of showing if a woman has the right to appoint a Shlich, Leilacha. A woman can appoint a Shlich Kabbalah, someone to represent her. As soon as the Shlich gets it, she is free. Does she have the right to appoint a Shlich L'Halacha? Actually, Rashi, Rambam, and others, if she does. So generally speaking, when Gemara talks about a woman, we're talking about she's appointing a Shlich Kabbalah. For example, a young girl said to a Shliach, I want you to receive the get on my behalf. Now, we know that a Katan and a Ketana do not have the capacity to make shlichus, and even a quotation says sometimes they do, but not in things which they don't have the mitzvah of. Ain't a get, so therefore the shlich is not really her shlich. It's not a get. Ad she get yegia get liyada, until the get comes to her hand. So according to those who showing hold that a Ketana cannot appoint a shlich l'halacha, it's like the husband. When the husband gives the get, he said, "No, take it to my wife." So therefore, he becomes a shlich l'halacha for the husband. The husband could change his mind. She ain't cut knows a shlich because a youngster, a minor, cannot appoint a shlich. As we're learning more kedushin, second page. But if the father said to the shlich, "Tevis kabla biti giti," I want you to receive the get on my daughter's behalf. The father has the right to accept the get, so therefore the husband can no longer change his mind. The father himself. Yeah, we learned yesterday. A father can kabbalah get on behalf of his daughter. That's what we said. A man maybe can send a shlich kabbalah because sometimes he can be the one to receive the get itself on behalf of his daughter. So the shlich is really his shlich, not necessarily the daughter. Exactly. That's the point. Exactly. Next case. If somebody says, this mission here that talked about Gittin, we have the exact same idea when it comes to kedushin, and that is as follows: we have a thing called Tunayim. I put a condition in place. You have to meet those conditions. If you don't, nothing happens. How do we understand? Sometimes words we don't understand if this is a condition, a rider that you're attaching to whatever what you're saying, or this is purely you're trying to make facilitate it. So therefore, you're saying probably this is the destination where you're going to find my husband. She says, go to this town, pick up my get. Is that a condition? And she feels more comfortable to go to a place that no one knows her, and not rather the other towns that people know her and she's embarrassed? Or is it, or if he does the same thing, or is it more a maramokim? My husband should be there, so go there. So ha'aymed can get the least you give them by the husband, but the wife will see there's a machlekes. The husband's perspective, he says, give the get to my wife, the mukim play in that particular place. And what happens when Nosle Magmachaba went somewhere else? Possible is possible because clearly said, "I want you to go here." It's a condition. For whatever reason, he maybe it's really uncomfortable. The husband, complaining. My wife is there. Go there and pick up the get. So it's not a condition. He's just indicating to him. And the shliach found out that the wife actually is somewhere else and gave it to somewhere else. Caution is valid. Why? Because he was just pointing out. What about the other way around? The isha. If a woman says, "Go there and receive my get," and instead she received the get somewhere else, possible. Yeah, say like by man, because it's like a condition, because he may be embarrassed. Rabbi Lazar only argues in the case of a woman. He says that even if she said, "Go to this town," even go somewhere else, and you find the husband to pick up the get, is good enough. He doesn't argue in the case of the man, and you must wonder why not. Was more explained. What about bring me from this place and brought somewhere else? Of course, everybody's kosher. Again, this is merely an indication. What about, says the Gemara, we don't understand. Why when the husband says it, the public argument, everyone says that's possible because he said only there and nowhere else. Why when the woman says it, we say, oh, no big deal, Blazer argues. The polig. Says Gemara, very simple. Him is totally, everyone knows that it's his choice, and he made the choice. Copied. He doesn't want these people in this town to know that he decided to divorce his wife. She has no braid in it. About korchem is gadeshes. Regardless, she has no braid. If a maramokim he like, doesn't make a difference to really where she gets the get. So it's maramokim he like. She's just telling him. It doesn't matter what wording he uses. He's only giving an indication. Next Mishnah. So what happens? She says, bring me a get. She bring me a get. Since he says, bring me a get. She get the other. She gave it to him until the get is in the hand, as if she made a condition that even though she said you're Shliach Kabbalah, I don't want to become a get until it comes to me. He's Kabbali Giti, but she says outright, I want to be a Shliach Kabbalah straight away. Asura Lechel Betruma. Poshup Shat in the mission is that she just made a Shliach Leilach. The difference between Havali and his Kabbali, Havali is be a Shliach Leilach, so it's not a valid get till she receives it. So she can continue eating Truma if she's the wife of a Kohen until she receives the get. But if she uses the expression his Kabbali, the moment you receive it, I'm divorced, then when does she, for example, it takes a week to travel there. Is she be entitled to eat Truma for another week until she can assume the Shliach received the get? No. Asura Lech Truma. Can I eat Truma straight away? Can he eat Truma straight away? Why? Because you don't know. Maybe he met the husband right out of town. You don't know. What about now? Even though the woman has a chazaka, she probably wasn't divorced. Why are you being so machmir? So they said this is purely a chumrah. Why? Because we have a rule. Chazaka is a shlichusa. We have a rule. Now the chiddush of chazaka is shlichusa, which we had yesterday. That if you said marry, find me a woman, is that this is a shlichus that's totally not up to him. It's up to the woman where she consents to marry this guy that she has no idea who it is. And yet we're machmir. And not only that, if you take each individual woman and you say, do you think this woman is the one that was married? She's probably from the Roiv that isn't married. Yet we are very machmir. We say, no, but maybe. So therefore, we are machmir. Even though yesterday Tosha said it's a knas for being loose with the wording. Here Tosha learns it's purely al chumrah. The east of the rice and we're machmir. Okay, if she says it's Kabbali Giti complaining, I want you to go somewhere. Because remember that according to Tanakama, if she says complaining and you go somewhere else, you meet the husband, we don't care, it's not a valid get. So therefore, and we assume it takes a week to get there, and she cannot receive the get anywhere else but there, so she can continue Truma till that time. But he said before, what if you met the husband somewhere else, she's only Mara Makkah because it makes no difference to her anyway. It's not up to her to give a get. So therefore she can no longer eat Truma. Sorry?
That she get Lois Makkah?
Yeah, Lois Makkah. So let's say
the Shliach gets to that place, not get.
It means the idea, the concept, yeah. It's as if she's saying, don't be my shliach until you arrive at that place. So the Gemara begittin me, I have but it sounds from here that let's say he says that exactly what the Gemara is now is going to be medacting the lotion you just said until we reaches that place. Sounds like what happened? The shliach picked up the get in another place. Not the pshat is the get is possible. The get is it has not been activated. He then takes the get, goes to that place that she told him, and that's where the get is activated. So it sounds like the get to me I have it. So it sounds like when the shliach arrives in that city, the get is valid. Get, but says unequivocally that the get is not valid because she made it tonight. It has to go to that other city, or no, at least not in that place. She said he's she said, I want you to receive the get in the city of Mechasya, but then she added, but on occasion you'll find my husband a bubble. Because she added that in, clearly she didn't dafka one in that place. It sounds like you could pick it up wherever you want. So why did you mention Mechasya at all? As if to say, I want you to be my shli, I want you to pick up the get wherever my husband is, but I don't want you to activate it or go to a bezin and to make it a real get until you get to the city of Mechasya. You take the get wherever you find it. Of shokle, take it. Of Gita lahavi, I don't want the get to be valid. Add the matis l'masa mechasya until you come to sit mechasya. So Teish already asked, all the Rishonim asked that l'chayda. So when the shliach picked up the get, it wasn't a get. When it comes to mechasya, suddenly becomes a get. It's no different than the case we had before. Like a chatzah bam lachem. The husband put in the chatzah. It's not a valid get, but when she buys the chatzah, it becomes a chatzah. It becomes a chatzah. Here also, the shliach received it. So the husband never gave it to the shliach. When the husband gave the shliach, it wasn't her shliach. When did he become her shliach? When he comes to the city of mechasya. But who gave it to the husband's hand in the city of mechasya? It's no different than tli get in malgabe karka. Pick up the get from the ground. The husband put it on the ground and said, "Not pick it up." How does it work? So some of the Shem answer. It's as if she said, I want you to start being my Shliach Kabbalah wherever my husband is, but I don't want you to be complete Shliach Kabbalah Because Shliach Kabbalah means the second you get it, you're Mekudesh. I want you to start being my Shliach Kabbalah when the husband gives it to you, but don't complete being a Shliach Kabbalah until you arrive at the city of Mechasia. And according to the others, first I want you to be a Shliach Halacha, and then turn into a Shliach Kabbalah. Shliach Halacha until you get to Mechasia, and Mechasia you become Shliach Kabbalah. So therefore, it worked all the time. Head one further, but Rabbi Loza said, Rabbi Loza says that no, she can no longer eat truma because consistent with the view wherever the husband is. Then you want to to the Maramakum you just said before it, but you have to repeat again this machlek. You already said Maramakum. Now what that when she makes these conditions doesn't really mean that there has to be dafka this place. So the Gemara, she said, Zil Mizra, I want you to go directly in the east direction because my husband is somewhere in the east. Because of Lamaitiv, and this is the Chiddush, he went west. So according to Rabbi Loza, would have thought even if Loza might be made in this case, he continued to eat truma for a while because the husband's not there. Okay, you don't care where you pick up the get, but the Metzias is the husband is not found in the west, only in the east. So Malkei Lamaitiv Halesa, he's not found in the west, and maybe even part of Loza he can continue eating. Dilma Bahadid, they can also make his guys. Maybe he happens to meet him right on the outskirts of town. Therefore he's machmi. You can no longer eat truma from the beginning. The Yovla Gittin, and he gave the shliach the get. If somebody says to shliach, now that we're talking about how particular you are, according to Chachamim, if I say you're this town, it has to be in this town. You pick the get. What happens? Okay, you have to make an erev tchumen. An erev tchumen is on Shabbos you're allowed to walk 2,000 cubits outside of the city, and then if you want to continue walking another 2,000, we borrow the 2,000 from the other side of the city and extend it on this side. So you lose the 2,000 on your right, and now you go, let's say, in the east, and now you go to the west. But you have to put some food down there as if you're cutting your shvish, and this became your new home. So your new home now is there, and you have 2,000 amos in each direction from that place. So what happens if a person said to Shliach, I want you to use dates and put it there as my food. But instead, we eat a little bit of he put dried figs. Well, the other way around. But he put dried figs, we eat a little bit of water. And he told him to dry figs, and he put in the dates. Tani Chod, one bride says, it doesn't matter. The Erev is still valid Erev. The Tanya, obviously, the husband is not particular. The owner is not particular what food you just gave you an indication. However, Tanya Chalot says, Ein Eruv Erev. You didn't carry out the shlichus exactly the way you were instructed. Therefore, you're no longer considered the agent of this person. Now, how do we reconcile the two rices? So, Omer Rabba is not exactly the argument between Rabbi and the Tanakama. Harabban. Why? Rabban said if she told the shliach go to that town, she meant particularly that town. And Rabban says no, even though she mentioned that, it doesn't meet after this. I mean, here when he said dates, doesn't really care. Dates, fish, he dried fish, just gave you an idea, a suggestion, but makes no difference. That's exactly the same machlekes. Rabbi Yosef says no. I can say Rabban to both the Rabban can be shalei, can be shechaveilai. Here it's talking about if it's his own food, he doesn't really care which one you use. Even according to the Rabbanan, in this case, you don't care which one you use. And over there, by get you're embarrassed here, what do you care? But the other bride is talking about your friend said, you know what, you can take some of my food to use for your Chumen. And the friend told him, use my dates. So you have no right then to go ahead and use the dried figs because it's not yours. So if it's shalai, I don't care really what it is. I suggested this, you can do something else. But if it's a chavedo, then you have to carry out exactly what it is. So both can fit into Chachamim is different. However, Rashi has a different shot, and the Shayim will talk about it. Rashi learns that the Rabbanan actually only argue in the case of a woman. Only in the case of a woman do we say that they're so particular because, they don't mean humiliated, don't be embarrassed. But everywhere else, even though I said this, doesn't dafka mean that. So it comes along Abaye, of course. Abaye, he let the Rabba go, and he went to Rabbi Yosef. Well, all the time, look another Bryce. We have the same distinction or the same argument to do Bryce about another matter. I want you to make the place it. Right now, we understand he's talking about where to place the food. Place it in this tower, but instead, to place it in a chinkup. Or b'shoivich, you don't place in a chinkup. You let me put it in the tower. The Tanya one Bryce says the it's a good Erev because it was only an indication. And the Tanya I told you in the tower. What are you putting it somewhere else? And now, according to Rabba, we understand the argument very simple. Again, Rabbanan say he's very particular if he says to put it somewhere, and Rabbanan says he's not particular. But you, Rabbi Yosef, say that what even according to Rabbanan, generally people are not particular. And the case of Adam is whether it's my food or somebody else's food. Hasam Maishlich over here. What's the difference between someone else? What's the difference if it's somebody else's tower and Jigub or not, or your own? People don't really care. So the Gemara, Hasam Nam, you misunderstood Shat the Braisa. Rabbi Yosef answers. Ika paid it when he said places. It didn't mean places in the migdal. Take the fruits from the migdal and use that, or take the fruits from the chicken coop. So he told him take the fruits from the migdal and use that, and instead he went to the fruits of the chicken coop and he used that. And again, it's talking about the shalosh chavera. Yehasa nam ika paid the middle. Paid is both the place. So if it's my own, I told you pay the middle. Take paid. What's the difference? But if it's somebody else's, then I have no right to go to the other place. Next Mishnah. Somebody says, "Kiss get." I want you to write a get, but to Alicia, give it to my wife. But these are the expressions they use. People refer get generally, even though we learned yesterday that get can also mean a contract, but people in the vernacular, the people use the word get means other divorce. But truly, or he says, "Give it to my wife again." And give to my wife. Or you said Girshua, which is also a word Gadishin is a word that we also use for divorce. Kiss we get it, give it to her. It's clear that's what he meant. But if you use the word patrua, patrua means can also mean send her away, could also mean exempt her or exonerate her from paying your debts. It's not so clear. Patrua, use the word patrua, or use the word parnasua, take care of her needs. Or asula kanim do what's the right things to do, and asula could do what's right. How do we know what he means? Does it mean divorce? Is that the right thing? Or does it mean pay your bills? What does it mean? It's not clear. So therefore, you can't become a shliach and give a get because the husband never really appointed you. So the Gemara, adds a few more words. If he said the word shalchua, send her away, which is a lush of the pasuk, which shilcham bebeisa, or he uses the word shafkua, let her release her. A get is known as the get of shivukin, or tarchua, which also means the lush of divorce. In Aramaic, like or had in all of these, used to be giving clear instructions, go give a get, write a get, and give it to her. But if he uses the word patrua, he says, send her away, patrua, pater her, parnasua, or if you use the word parnasua, which means take care of her needs, or asula kenimus, or do like what the tradition is, asula karola, do what's right. When we say traditions, we mean tradition of get, a tradition of giving her clothes and providing for her. So this Bryce added a few other words over above our Mishnah. Tanya, we learned that Rab Nosson says it depends if you say patrua or pitrua. Patrua is like a command. Patrua, which means send her away. The word of Kayamin, that he meant a get. That's patrua, because that sounds like he's giving a command or something. Send her away. But pitrua, to use the word pitrua is more like a passive way. Don't collect your chayus from her. Then it's not a lashon of get. Omar was a Rab Nosson the Bavlo. Rab Nosson came from Bavel. It's very interesting. So what became in Bavel? So Rashi says that in Bavel they speak two languages. Sometimes they speak in Aramaic and sometimes they speak in Hebrew. So if he uses the word and you have to know which language you're speaking. If you use the word patrua, that's the lashon of a get in Aramaic. Patrua is a word they use for Aramaic. But if he uses pitrua, that's not an Aramaic word, that's already Hebrew. And in Hebrew, it's like potter from paying a potter. So I'm not the Bavlo who dayak. He's very particular about pitrua or patrua. Like we speak, we speak Yiddish with English mixed in, and same thing over here. You actually have to know what he's saying. So, but here he's saying is that something that goes into one language, another language, of a ton de done. Our time, the Bada Yisrael, they're from Yisrael, and therefore they only speak in Hebrew, which is interesting because Talmud Yerushalmi is the most difficult Aramaic you can find. But and it says because that was a vernacular in Yerushalayim. But here we say that in Yisrael they spoke. Actually, Rashi says the Chosi Puri Lashon Hebrew. They only spoke Hebrew. So therefore, it's a broken Hebrew. If somebody says Patrua when reading Hebrew, Pitrua, it doesn't mean that he's speaking Aramaic. Why would he speak Aramaic? It means that he's speaking a broken Hebrew. So, when did they stop speaking Aramaic in Eretz Yisrael? I guess maybe this is predated. Rabbi Yechon Ish Lakish was later on. This is the time of Tanoim, and maybe in the time of Tanoim, 100 years earlier, maybe they spoke only Hebrew. That's it. They ruined everything. Says the Gemara, the question: what happened to use the word Haitziyua? Haitziyua, the Torah uses the word the Yotzam basis. She left his house and she married somebody else. It's a word expression by leaving the husband. But the difference is it's not clear cut because it's not that the husband sent her away. She walked out. And here you're saying the husband is saying Haitziyua. So now the husband is using an expression that Torah uses describing what she did. Does that mean that he wants to give her a get? Is that what he's trying to say? Or maybe he's not using the lashon of the pasuk at all. And so that's the question. What does it mean? Or azvua, forsaken me. Since we don't find any way, on one hand, when we forsake me, it's a get. On the other hand, because we don't find that expression by get, maybe it doesn't mean a get. Or he tirua, again, in the get we write hariyat matez v'chalado. But he tirua can also mean maybe a net, be matan neher ledarim. No, these are words that are not so clear cut. He nichua, he says, let her go, mao. Ha'ilula, help her out, mao. Asula kedos, like the tradition of mao, like the law is mao. Says, you want to shake me a chad. That's one thing we can resolve. Time we learn the Braisa. Asula kedos, he says, follow the law, the traditions. Asula kenim, do what's right. Asula kero, or do what's suitable for her. It says, nothing happening. The next mission we already had previously in the Gemara, in the beginning of the Sechta. What happened if the husband didn't spell out, he said right again, but didn't spell out give it to her, but it's obvious that his mind, he was all confuddled, all confused, and therefore he didn't have a chance to conclude a sentence. But we know exactly what his intention is. So why would he tell her right again in this case? For example, Body Shine early on, I mean, they would say, or somebody's in chains about taken to the gallows to be executed. And the Amani, he shouts out, Kisu get Lishi, right to get to my wife to prevent her from having to marry his brother and becoming a Yavama. Even he didn't say give it to her. Obviously, why does he want to write a get? He knows he's going to be executed because he wanted to write it and to give it to her. He just didn't, he didn't think it, he didn't have a chance to express himself properly. Later on, they said, people travel in caravans, it seemed like it was a big event. And they were very nervous, and a lot of times people never came back. So he said, write a get for my wife, Pashas, and then he's leaving. He doesn't know if he's coming back, so why did he write a get? Obviously, to give it to her.
So he meant to do it with a condition.
But he didn't. So we can't make that up. He had to say it. If he didn't say anything and just said, write a get, and he's going on a trip and he doesn't know if he'll come back home, and those days, all the roads are a sakana, so we assume that's exactly what he wanted to do, divorce her.
The color, I understand, he definitely wants to give it. In this case, you might say he was saying write it, and before he was going to leave.
He's leaving right now. We're talking about he's leaving. This is the day, a month before he leaves, he can say right. Next, Rav Shimon Shazuri added, and then according to most persons, halacha, af hamasukin, even if somebody's in danger. And Rashi says, even just sick. And the machlek is, exactly how do you define masukin. But somebody's very sick, delirious, and he says the right to get or sick that he thinks that he's that this is it, it's fatal, it's mortal, then he would he meant give the get to my wife. Talking about Geneva Yatzabekayla, and I don't know if it's the same Geneva we had before. We had it twice. There was a big I didn't know how to learn very well, but he was a bar plukte Marukva. Marukva was very happy to let him die, or if it's somebody else. But interesting, because of that, people want to say it's not Geneva, it's Geneva. Maybe yeah, maybe not. Geneva, Yaitse, Bekail have taking the chains, have a Konofi, as is being led. Omar, he said the following. Havu arba meyazuzel rabavina. I want you to give $400 of vina, mechamer from wine. Now, he didn't say $400 worth of wine. He didn't say 400, whatever. He just said $400 from my wine. We'll come back to that. The Nahar Panya, located in this place called Nahar Panya. Now he didn't. Omar Abzeh said, Dora Rab Avina Lesilse. Rab Avina should take his basket, carry it on his shoulder, and because he's going on a trip. Where's he going? Va'azal legabe de Rab Huna Rabbe. Let Rab Avina go to Rab Huna, his Rebbe, who paskins the Amar Rab Huna Gita Kematanase. He says that a get and a matana have the same laws. And we learn from each other. First, ma matanase. By a matana, if a person who's dying says, "I want all my properties to go this person, that person, that person," but then suddenly, miraculously, he came back, then all the gifts that he gave away unraveled, and because the only reason why he gave it away, he thought he was passing on, but he's not. He's im amad. If he becomes healthy again, he can change his mind. I've Gittin, the same thing again. He gave a get to his wife, thinking that he's dying. Im amad. It turned out to be that he didn't die from that sickness. He can recall that get. Uma Gittin. Hopefully, she didn't get married between the
ramifications are a bit different.
But a shchimera is like is the last day, the final days. So the chances are. But you're right. Well, interesting what happens. Umagite, and let's now go all the way around. Just like a get. Avgav the late party. You said before, if a person is dying and you didn't have a chance to spell out, give it to them. You just said right. Kivan Amakisvu, you said right. Avgav the you didn't say give. Is a valid. You have to give it. Av matanose. Kivan the Amatanu, he says give, because the guy didn't make a kinyan. He just said give it, and then he died. The children can say, the heirs can say, hey, our father, very nice. But it's still ours. We don't want to give it to you. No. So the same here. Kivan Amatru, in the language he used there, he says, give $400 of wine. Even though no transaction was made, it belongs to Ravina. So Ravina, go to Ravina, get that rule, established, and go back and collect your $400 of wine. Maskiv lo Rabba said, I don't agree. I don't see the comparison. Matana, you know why a matana is effective? How can you compare matana to get? By matana, yeshna la'achamis. If you're going to equate the two, you're telling me a maisa that you compare get to matana. So there's another din by matana. If you're going to equate the two, then let's see if it applies. And if it doesn't apply in this din, then it applies nowhere. Then the whole comparison doesn't work. What's that? By matana, if a guy says, I want this gift to take effect the day after I pass away, it will. But if a man says, I want this get to be effective the moment I pass away, she's already a free woman. Who are you divorcing? So we see you can't compare the two. So are you going to say that get those is effective achamis? If you're going to equate the two, it should be exactly identical. So what are you comparing? The imam is the same, but the mitzvah has changed, not the halacha changes. The halachas are exactly the same. But okay, the divorce takes effect a minute after you die. But who are you divorcing? She's already a free woman. She's a widow already. Is effective after Misa, therefore fine. The Metzias isn't there. Not that the halacha doesn't apply. Let's say the halacha applies, but where? Which woman are you going to divorce now when she's not your wife anymore? So what's bothering Rabba? What's bothering Rabba is the following. This case here, and he disputes this case that you want to compare to Rav Huna's din. I don't think so, because when we say a matna shchimra, the whole logic of a shchimra is he's passing on. He knows that he's not going to be around anymore, so he wants to distribute his assets, and we don't want in any way that he should feel he's not in control anymore, because that in itself will exacerbate the situation. But if a shchimra only gives away some of his assets, not all of them, what does that tell us? He doesn't really think that he's about to pass on. He doesn't want to relinquish all his rights. He's still hedging his bets. So when do we say the laws of matna shchimra is only if you give away everything? Over here, he's only giving away $400 worth. So it's not a matna shchimra. What are you comparing this to a get? This is not Rav Huna's case. So therefore, Rav Avina gets nothing. So this is what bothers him. Matna shchimra b'miktzas. This is the case of a matna shchimra where only part of the assets are being distributed. Matna shchimra b'miktzas by a kinyan. And the rule is if you give a matna shchimra only a part, you need a kinyan. Says the Gemara, so in L'chayre, Rav Huna, who doesn't make that distinction, Rav Huna says that a matana is like a get, which means a matana is effective. It doesn't say only if you give away all of your assets, even part. How can that be? Rav Huna holds that what? That even if you only distribute part of your assets, you don't need a kinyan because the Shkrivanah said so. The rule is the boy kinyan. The rule taki is that what's going on here? Says the shiny hacham. The reason why Rav Huna over here says, even though you're right, matna shchimra b'miktzas is not really, doesn't mean that he means he doesn't think he's going to pass on. But here is mitzvah machmas misa. Here, why is he giving it? Because he knows that he's passing away. And for example, in the case of the person being led to the gallows, over here he knows that he's about to be killed. So even though he's not a shchimra, not dying, but he's giving his last minute instructions, his last will and testament. So same thing over here. This person here, Geneva, is being taken to the gallows. He knows, so it's not a shchimra. It's a mitzvah machas misa, and therefore even a mitzvah is still a good, is still valid. You have to follow his instructions, and therefore you don't need a kinyan. No, and what's Abba's question? In that respect, Manashach. If that's what this is, then everyone agrees you don't need a kinyan. What's Abba's problem? This is what bothered Rab Abba in this particular story, and that is the wording. What did he say? He didn't say give him wine with the value of $400. And the Mechamra Lekama, he didn't say give him $400. He said Mechamra, give him $400 for wine. It's a meaningless phrase. What does that mean? What is $400? How are you going to produce $400 out of the wine? It's like it's impossible. So therefore, he didn't say anything. He didn't. If he would have said the value of wine, that means take wine, sell it, and convert it to money. He didn't say that either. He says give him $400 out of the wine. It's like he's being facetious. That's Abava's problem. No, so how come we said before? Rab Zayda said go to Rab Huna because you'll obtain it. You know why he said from the wine, even though the wording is wrong. Now, this is interesting. If this guy who's about to die, this is what he's thinking of. He knew that maybe his heirs are going to protest or whatever, so he wanted to strengthen Rabavina. He wanted to strengthen Rabavina's hand, his position. So he told him that what? Say you want 400. What do you call it? He didn't say he said $400 from wine. Why? He wanted that the children should take a full responsibility to make sure this guy gets his $400. Because if he would have said, give him wine, the value of $400, the wine turns sour, they won't take care of it. If he says give him $400 and they lose the money, he lost. But if he said $400 from the wine is here, and you give him $400. So what happens? What happens? You have to, if it's turning over, sell it as much wine as you need. Give him his money. That's so. This guy is unbelievable. The guy must be a Talmud Chacham. If he's walking into the gallows and this is what he's thinking, how I'm going to make sure that this Rabavina is going to get exactly what I want.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah, make a lawyer. They sent from there, Mechamra, from wine to the Yafas Koichet. So they agree that that's what he said it for. Okay, we can stop here. We'll continue tomorrow morning with Hashem at the same time.